Good afternoon. We're going to start on time. We're going to use this time very wisely, and we're going to move forward with our questions and our concerns. Before we get into our meeting, we do have several of our county commissioners here. We have Commissioner McDaniels, Tanya McDaniels, and we have Commissioner Dr. Fleming Alameen. Dr. Alameen called and talked with Ms. Bradshaw, who assists me, on yesterday, and today I talked with Ms. McDaniels, and she said that she's just going to be very brief because she has another meeting. We both have the same meeting, but I'm here with this one because this is so important for me. We also have with us our county manager. Have you ever met the county manager? Well, introduce yourself, county manager. Introduce yourself to them.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. I'm Dudley Watts, and I've served as county manager in this community since 2006. And I'm here with a couple of staff folks, but I've got a deputy county manager, Damon Sanders Pratt. Damon, stand up. He's the better looking of the two guys that are in the manager's office. So, we're just glad to be here.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I'm going to now, Commissioner, you would like to speak, Commissioner McDaniels?
Good evening, everyone. My name is Commissioner Tanya McDaniel, and I serve you in the district for District A. First, I would like to commend Dr. Burke for this presentation this afternoon. Can we give her a hand? Thank you. And I'd also like to thank our staff at the county office for being here to be a part of this presentation today. Unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to stay very long. I'm sure that you're going to be in great hands in terms of the Q&A this afternoon. There's a Board of Elections meeting that's scheduled today that's very, very important to our community that I need to be, so I can't be in two places at one time, but know that my heart is here with you. I'm sure that if you have any additional questions, my mentor, Dr. Fleming Alameen, will also be here to help you as well. So thank you for a few words.
Thank you very much. And we did have our Councilwoman Dee Dee Adams did stop by, and she's on her way to that meeting. Sometimes when things happen, we wonder why. Sometimes when people have certain attitudes and behavior, we wonder why. But when we give it to God, things work out. I'm sure all of you had read or heard on TV about the problems we were having with the airport not staying a part of the city. And the folks who wanted it to change, they got their way. A commissioner and I would say a state legislator. When we were at this last meeting, and I said that this came before our Senator Lowe, and he said, don't throw me under the bus, Ms. Burke, but he didn't have the vote for it to stop. But it happened, and I'm so happy it happened because now we have a department in the county, our airport. And we have someone, as Mr. Davidson said, it's coming on pretty good, but it's tough sometimes when you have to know all the kinds of things when you get into county government. And so when we're here today, we're here to have a good presentation, to make sure your questions are being answered. And I would like for you to know that Ms. Bradshaw stands so they can see you. Ms. Bradshaw assists me on a daily basis. And some years ago, Mr. Bill Stewart was city manager, and he said, Ms. Burke works so hard. And that's when he said to us as elected officials, we all will get someone to assist us on a daily basis. She's always there for you. She's a hard worker, and I want you to know that she is indeed a jewel for anyone to have to assist them. Thank you, Ms. Bradshaw. Also, we have with us this evening It's about to be evening. It's still afternoon. It's not 6 o'clock. We have with us this afternoon Mr. Evans Riley. Mr. Riley, stand so they can hear you. And Mr. Riley will be answering a lot of questions. Tell them your job, please. Tell it right now.
Good evening. It's good to be with you. My title is Assistant City Manager for the City of Winston-Salem, and I primarily am responsible for economic development. It's good to be with you this evening.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm so pleased that we do have, he was here, Assistant Chief Weaver. Did Assistant Chief leave? And I was so pleased to have two officers who's making sure all of us, and we salute our Winston-Salem Police Department. They work hard. They make it so when you call them, they're going to be there for you. And they ride the neighborhoods, and sometimes they sit in the neighborhood to let folks know that they are caring about us. We have Mr. Huff here also, Mr. Keith Huff, stand so they can see you, and he's going to be talking probably, Mr. Davison will be really managing this whole presentation tonight. You will tell us, and those who need to speak up from the city and the county, you will speak up. Thank you. And we have our city manager, Stan, Mr. Lee Garrity. He is responsible, the county government we have. He's responsible for 40-some thousand people in the city. The elected officials, 8 of us, he reports to us, and we tell him what we want to happen in our 8 wards and taking care of the people that we love and appreciate and represent. Now, Mr. Dudley, since he's with us now, we expect for our county manager. How many you have in the county? How many people? We know we're part of that 375,000, and we expect you to be accountable to us. I'm happy that you're here, so that taxpayers in this area who've been paying taxes for years can see your county manager. All right, now I'm going to turn this over to Mr. Davison, who is the airport director. Thank you, Mr. Davison.
Thank you very much, Mayor Pro Tem. Let's see if I can get this clicker to work here. Well, welcome this afternoon. I want to first of all apologize. We met last, or you all met last in the fall, and I was out of town. I apologize for that, but I'm excited that we're able to get together today, and I can sort of share with you some of the plans we have for the airport. But before I get into all that, I want to share with what's currently going on at the airport. Some of you might not be familiar. So the first slide I wanted to show you is the current activity. And we at Smith Reynolds Airport have been designated by the FAA as a national airport. You might be saying, well, what does that mean? The FAA has said there's 84 in the country that are essential for the transportation system. And so what that also means is we get a lot of funding from the FAA as well as the state of North Carolina. Like I said, out of the 2,954 airports, we're in the top 84 for the designation. We also keep our, what they call Federal Aviation Regulation FAR Part 139 certificate. So I know back in the day, those who are familiar with Piedmont Airlines, you had regular scheduled service. We don't have regular scheduled service, but we can have service, commercial service, and sometimes we'll have charters come in that have, a 737 or something like that that might be transporting a sports team. So we still keep our certificate, and that adds value to the airport. Another thing I want to share with you is how many aircraft are on the field. To give you an idea, about 93 aircraft. When you drive by on North Liberty Street, you might see just a few out on the ramp, but there's a lot of hangars that are around the airport, and they're all completely 100% full. So we have a waiting list for hangars. We also have about 46,000 operations a year. An operation is either a takeoff or a landing, and so we're pretty busy. And about 1.1 million gallons of fuel are dispensed at the airport. And then when you talk about the airfield infrastructure, we have 2 runways. Runway 1533 is 6,655 feet, and Crosswind runway, which runs along North Liberty Street, is about 3,938 feet. The longer runway, the 6,655 feet runway, you can get in a 737, a 757, some of those larger aircraft, and then those often come in for maintenance. And so I'll get into that here for a second. In the state of North Carolina, there are 72 public use airports. You're familiar probably with the Raleigh and the Charlottes, and there's about 10 that are commercial service that have regular service, airline service. We are part of the 62 general aviation airports in the state, and all the airports within the state, 94% of the residents of North Carolina are within a 30-minute drive of any airport in the state or in their area. I want to show you this slide. 2 weeks ago, the Department of Transportation Division of Aviation put out, they did a study over the course of a year, and they found that Smith-Reynolds Airport had the largest economic impact of any general aviation airport in the state. And so they surveyed a lot of our tenants and found out how many jobs were associated with the airport. And we had over 3,500 jobs, which equated to an economic output of over 801 million. That's direct and indirect, an economic impact. And then you can see also the local taxes and all that's associated with it. This diagram sort of shows you where the airport is, right here in the middle, and it depicts the blue dots are aviation-related companies, and then throughout the county. And this brown area, this is the county. If you can't see, that's the shape of Forsyth County. This shows you within 15 minutes a drive time of how convenient the airport is to the community. And this is really important when we start talking about workforce development and access and things of that nature. This slide I generated just to show you some of the stakeholders, including Winston-Salem, the city of Winston-Salem, Forsyth County, the airport neighbors, the users, and also some of our major commercial tenants. When you drive by, you might see these signs, BB&T or North State Aviation, Epps Trucking, also have like Signature Flight Support. If you were to land at Smith-Reynolds Airport, they're the ones that would meet you and fill you up with fuel and might give you a courtesy car if you need to go somewhere. North State Aviation is the one that rents or leases that large blue hangar that's at 4001 North Liberty Street. And right now they employ over 100 employees that work on aircraft and aircraft maintenance. And to give you an idea, the county owns a lot of these facilities. When you drive by, you'll see the county actually owns a facility, and then we lease it to tenants that create jobs in the community. So we have over 500,000 square feet of facilities that we actually own and then lease out and maintain. And going back to that slide, we're about 88% full. The one hangar that's across the street, sometimes you'll see on North Liberty Street at 3820, that old hangar that used to be Landmark Aviation, that's the one that's really dragging us down that I haven't been able to lease. But other than that, we're really 100% full on aircraft in the hangars. And when you start thinking about the possibility of the airport, what's the vision? And what I envision, I think a lot of the community leaders envision, is there's so much infrastructure and investment made in the innovation quarter right here adjacent to the northeast ward. I think there's a possibility of making a connection when you think about the airport, where it is compared to the drive time to downtown. I think there's some connections that can be made when you start thinking about that infrastructure as well as what's at the airport. And also the educational colleges in this area, as well as what's to come, drones and those kind of new technologies. So I just want to, I don't want to ignore that investment that's been made downtown. So how do you make that connection? Well, one of the things we want to do is educate the workforce. And what we have here, this was from the North Carolina, that economic development report that the state put out, is that they found that over 1,000 students are currently in aviation programs in the community colleges, and there's 28 aviation programs throughout the state. And we're going to add to that, because if you don't remember, just a couple of years ago in 2016, the voters voted to invest $16 million in a new aviation FORSYTH Tech Aviation Center. And so what that's going to do is, and I'll show you here a slide, but that's going to create an opportunity for anybody in the community to come out to Smith-Reynolds Airport, learn a trade, maybe work in avionics or working on aircraft, and it's going to be amazing. And what I want to do is, the county wants to do as well, is make a connection. And I was talking to Carol, I don't know if she's here still, the principal here at this school, and make a connection, maybe something like signing day, instead of just, you know, when the kids put on a hat to go play football at a school, they'd put on a FORSYTH Tech aviation hat, and we'd have signing day. We'd make a connection between this high school as well as the other high schools in the community to really promote FORSYTH Tech and the Aviation Center, because there's such an investment going to be made. And here's a artist rendering of what it's going to be. So we're looking at, this is the layout. I think it's going to be about 53,000 square feet at a cost about $16 million. And we should be starting that soon. So I showed you what we currently do, some of the vision, and now I'm getting into the 4 projects I want to talk about. And this is the first one. And the reason this is the first one is because we envision this probably starting this summer. The state approved the plans for the FORSYTH Tech Aviation Center, and so I see that possibly constructing this summer or in the fall. And to give you an idea, this is an aerial drawing we made of the airport. We put it on top of an aerial, some of these improvements. And this first improvement here, this is where FORSYTH Tech Aviation Center here. So here's North Liberty Street to give you an idea, and then Fairchild, and if you drive up there, you have BE Aerospace. Go up a little bit further, and that's where the FORSYTH Tech Aviation Center is going to be. When I was talking about the runways earlier, this is 1533, the one that's the longest one, the 6,300 or 6,655 feet, and then this is the other crosswind runway, 422, that's about 4,000 feet. So that's the first major project I wanted to discuss, was FORSYTH Tech. The next major project is a taxi lane Lima and ramp project. Before I get to that slide, I just wanted to show you that in that report that the state did, they discovered that North Carolina ranked 5th in maintenance, repair, and overhaul employment nationwide, over 4,400 jobs. Like I mentioned before, North State Aviation, Piedmont Propulsion. You go out to Greensboro, PTI, and they have HACO, and a lot of employees at Honda Jet. And so this is a sector, and that's why typically you don't have community colleges like FORSYTH Tech adjacent to another county like Guilford Tech teaching the same curriculum like aviation. But they realize this Piedmont Triad region has a real thirst and have a lot of employers that want to hire mechanics, aircraft mechanics, and that's why FORSYTH Tech was selected to offer that curriculum. So, and they noticed, if you notice that, 46% job growth coming up, or that they experienced in the past 5 years. So here's the project I was mentioning. This is right adjacent to North State Aviation, 4001 North Liberty Street. And what we're looking at doing, we already got approved funding, and the way it works out at the airport is the FAA and the state of North Carolina provide 90 to 100% funding for a lot of our projects to develop the airport here locally. This project to build a ramp at 4001, this is the North State hangar. To build this ramp is 100% funded from the state. That's how much they have faith in our community, and we're out of space. Once that FORSYTH Tech aviation facility is built, we don't have any more ramp. And so what they did, this is the most reasonable place to put a new development. And so what happened was the Army Corps of Engineers, since we're impacting, there's a current wetlands right here, and since we're impacting that wetlands, they sent out a notice to several of you here in the room that the Army Corps of Engineers was letting you know that the airport is about to build a development, and they were asking for public comments and input. And so when you look at an aerial of Smith-Reynolds Airport, I think we have about 76 neighbors that surround the airport. And as Mayor Pro Tem Burke mentioned before, the airport's not only in your backyard, we're in your front yard. We understand that. We want to share with you what we have planned. And so this is one of the projects I wanted to talk about tonight. and the reason why you got that notice. When you go to the next, this ramp here on this aerial is up here. So this is Lansing Drive, that's Piedmont Propulsion right there, and then this is North Liberty Street. The idea is to build this ramp, $14 million, and move dirt from over here over to here, because when you look at the terrain, it's a big dip. And so that's why you were notified by the Army Corps of Engineers, because we need to make sure we relocate this stream or impact this wetlands, that we don't impact negatively any streams or anything near the airport. So that's why that's being investigated and looked into. And so we don't want to move forward until we get all the public comments and things like that. So that's that project. The next project I wanted to share with you is the FAA several years ago on our longest runway. We have a taxiway Alpha, that runs the whole length of the runway, and it's 281 feet from the center line of the taxiway to the center line of the runway, 281 feet. Well, since that was designed way back in the day, the FAA said, hey, that's too close. It's too dangerous for an aircraft landing, say a 737 is landing and a 737 is taxiing out. The wingtips, if they're off center, would be about 35 feet from each other. So they said, hey, airport, we're not going to allow you to continue operating this way. We need you to relocate that taxiway. And so the FAA has demanded that we move the taxiway. And so we studied it, and it's been determined that by the FAA that this taxiway Quebec should be constructed. And I showed it on this next slide. Hold on. This slide shows you where this yellow taxiway would be constructed. And this is for safety reasons. So it'll go from 281 feet to 400 feet from center line to center line. One of the things I want to mention on this slide is when you look at that taxiway, when you get down towards the end of runway 33, this is New Walkertown Road. You can see that the neighborhood right here, anybody is familiar with Teresa Avenue, it is really close already to the end of the runway. This neighborhood might possibly be impacted. There's about, let's see here, about 4 acres along Teresa Avenue. The FAA has not come back and told us anything yet, so what we'll do is the next step is we'll do an environmental assessment and see if those properties will be negatively impact with this project moving forward and possible acquisition. Like I said, the FAA has not ruled anything, and so we're at the beginning stages of this to determine whether this should be a possible alternative for this taxiway. The last project I want to talk about is when you drive, let me start over, the terminal renovations at the airport. If you ever gone to the Smith-Reynolds Airport, you see up on the hill there, the terminal, it was built in 1941. It hasn't changed much over the years. In the 60s, when it was the busiest airport in North Carolina, they added on to it, but they never stayed with the function of it, or they stayed with the function, but they didn't stay with the architectural design. So some of the ideas that we have is to renovate the terminal, to make it look like it did back in 1941, but with modern attributes. And we have a tenant, Signature Flight Support, that wants to move into the terminal, and possibly that would be the front door of the airport. Another component is, earlier when I was talking about the hangars, we are out of hangar space. There's no more hangars, and we have certain businesses in town that are eager to bring new aircraft to the airport. And so what we're looking at building or tearing down is an old hangar that was built in the 1930s, and building this, hold on, hit the wrong button, building a new hangar here. This sort of shows you both sides of it. And then the other component of it is the terminal. This is the terminal and a porte-cochere, and just making it look a lot better than it does right now. It's sort of worn down and needs some renovations done. And so we're excited that Signature Flight Support is willing to move in and lease that space. And what that does is when we lease space of property we already own, that allows us money to generate back into the airport to build infrastructure to help create jobs. And so the next question is, when would all this stuff happen if it is to move forward? These are, I want to say, these are estimated start dates and completion dates. Things change based on, plans and things like that. But the FORSYTH Aviation Center should be starting this summer in 2019. Like I said, the state approved the plans. We're looking at, that would probably take a year to complete. The taxi lane Lima, the ramp I showed you there north of North State, the $14 million project to start possibly the spring of 2020. It'll take probably a year to finish that project. And then the $25 million taxiway Quebec, we're looking at not for another couple years, in spring of 2021. And then the last one, those first three projects are pretty much funded. We just have to go through the process. And then the last one, we're still trying to obtain funding for the terminal renovations and hangar development, and that probably wouldn't start till 2020. So talking about today, we talked about the current operations at the airport and then what's beyond. And what I envision is transforming the airport to the economic engine it is and can be, and then just the creation of jobs. I think that's very important. We train the workforce, create jobs to work. Several of our tenants, I'll just take North State for example. They have an aging workforce. A lot of their employees were Piedmont Airlines employees and they're retiring. So they're always looking for mechanics, and that's one of the reasons FORSYTH Tech was granted the ability to start that new school. And so I think it's important to develop our workforce, and I think the airport already demonstrates there's over 3,000 jobs, and it's prime candidate to be an economic engine in regards to job growth and creation. And so those are my slides. I think I'll turn it back over to Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Mr. Davison. We do appreciate this, and you do have the opportunity to ask questions or make comments or observations. But before I do that, I would like to thank Dr. Davis and her students for receiving us well. And it's nice for them to have that experience also. Also, we have a staff with our video, our marketing department. Mr. Bell, we thank you. And these programs, were they done out of our department? Thank you. And the letters that you received to come here. So now it is open for you. Whatever concerns you have, we want to answer them today. I saw him come in, but I failed to recognize you. Senator Lowe, stand so we know that you're here. And of course, he has been keeping an ongoing communication with me concerning what's happening at the airport. And also, we had an airport committee that also worked. Would you just briefly tell about that airport committee, Mr. Evans? You were on it? Yes, yes, please.
Good evening again. Evan Raleigh with the City of Winston-Salem. As the Mayor Pro Tem mentioned, there is a committee made up of a diverse group of community members that is focused on trying to enhance the airport and make it a bigger driver in the economic development activity across the community. The Mayor Pro Tem is a member of that group. So is the mayor. Several other elected officials have been involved, as well as community members. The groups have been meeting, a report has been generated, several action items are currently in the development. Several community groups are taking lead positions in affecting or carrying out several of the recommendations that are contained in that report. The city, the county, the airport, the Chamber of Commerce, several different groups. And so that work is ongoing, it's underway. I don't know if you want me to talk more about it, but.
No, we know that the Chamber's one who did the.
Yes, yes, exactly. As Mayor Pro Tem just mentioned, that the Chamber of Commerce is really taking the lead position. They actually funded consultants that came in over the course of, I guess, about a year to look at our airport, to see how it could, again, become a bigger driver, create jobs, create opportunities in the city and in the county.
Now we're ready for questions. We have a mic there where Ms. Bradshaw is sitting. If you have any question, this is the time. Like some of the ministers will tell you, don't get in the parking lot and start talking. Let's talk it now. Thank you.
Yeah, I got it, so I'll make mine quick. I've lived out here since '68.
Just give us your name and your address.
Oh, Joseph Alexander, Carver Road. Family's been out here before when Carver Road first was built. That being said, I also live in Northwood Estates, played in that area as a child. If they're going to expand that traffic area, it's going to affect some of the houses very adversely. Are the people going to be compensated? And secondly, with this job creation, are any of the jobs coming from the people in our community? Are they going to connect with the people at this school? You're saying 4 years to 5 years down the road, if you start teaching these kids now, in 4 to 5 years, they're ready for the jobs. They live here. I don't know anybody that works at North State. I know 2 people that work for the airport, but the jobs, you're bringing jobs, they need to be for us in this planning stage.
You're exactly right.
And that expansion is going to be very close to a lot of houses.
That's right, because we ourselves, as the local elected officials, every time we bring a business in here and give your tax dollars, we're very disappointed because we don't have our residents getting those jobs. And we've said that over and over again. And so when I heard Mr. Davis, and you need to address that question that he asked, because when he mentioned the jobs, you started talking about the jobs, and then you started talking about these projects. We would like to know how many people are going to get the jobs, and also how you're going to address the students. You mentioned Carver, but are we really sincere about getting them into some type so they get at the Forsyth Tech and get trained to get these jobs?
And there's been an effort, Jim Shaw Ace Academy has a middle school as well as a high school aviation camp, trying to get that in the minds of young adults, that is a possible employment opportunity. I can't for say I know that there's going to be this many jobs, but I do know that with Ibrahim as the middle school, Prince Ibrahim, that's where the Ace Academy is. There's a connection here with Carver, with the Ace Academy, as well as some other camps. And so I can't say I know who they're going to hire. That'd be crazy for me to even try to say that.
If you prepare the students for those jobs, then they should be ready to be hired. You know the jobs are coming. You know the type of jobs they're going to be. You should say, hey, this is going to be coming. You should be trained. You should be doing the math. This is why you should do the math. You can go to Forsyth Tech. It's not that expensive. And if you give them that path, they will follow. But camp is where you play.
Well, I mean, these kids, they get a chance to ride in the aircraft, you say play, they get a chance to ride in the aircraft on the last day of the camp. They're throughout the whole camp period, they're learning about aeronautics, rocket design, things like that, to try to get them attracted to realize
Tell them about the money they can make. That's
and the
what
money,
they need to
yeah.
know. They need to know they can make money.
Yes, and I think
they'll be interested in flying.
yes.
Don't entertain us.
Mr. Alexander is asking a question that all of us need to have in our minds. Where are we going with this? When you come into our neighborhood, we've been your neighbors for a long time. We've endured a whole lot. So you're talking about a change. So I would think, since it's under the county, that like we're saying with the city manager, when we bring these jobs in here, we give the taxpayers dollars for these jobs, then we ought to receive some of these jobs. Minorities ought to, and they need to be trained. So I heard you talk about the camp. This is not anything against that camp, but if I were to ask you to give me the record of those students in that little aviation class, the results would not be where we would just fall out and say, oh, great. And I believe I've asked for that, but I have not received it. I want to know the students that have been at the Prince Ibrahim, taking those classes, where are they now in school, just what they're doing. See, when you do statistics, you deal with numbers. And when you deal with numbers, you can show when it first started, how many children were in the program where they are now. Biggest criticism we've had is that when people want something to work, they go find us, let us stay there, and then they don't really give us anything in the end. We're not showing positive results. County manager, were you going to say something?
Yeah, the only thing I was going to add that's different about it now, I don't know if the gentleman left or not, but the training, by putting a community college facility at the airport, the training is going to be here. So the training's in your neighborhood, and we believe the jobs are going to follow in the neighborhood. Yes, exactly. So you've got, and so I think what Mark had mentioned is the efforts to make these connections with the high schools so that these young people know that those jobs are out there. So that is getting the message to the guidance counselors in the school, and you've got, and you have this training opportunity in your neighborhood. Evan mentioned the Aerotropolis efforts that were underway. And sort of the connection between the county. Now, the airport has always been a county airport that was operated by a separate entity that's now been merged with the county. And so that has really allowed us to kind of have a laser focus on this county asset, and really the efforts now are to brand this airport and to really focus the kind of energy that you've seen in Innovation Quarter and some other parts of the county are really focused on this neighborhood now. The community, I think, believes that this airport is an important asset that's flown under the radar screen. And really the efforts now are to say, this is an important part of our economy. And we're going to focus on East Winston. We're going to focus on this airport as an area where we believe that jobs can be produced. So, yep.
Thank you very much, Dr. Burke. I'm going to be brief because I've got to go vote for someone to be on the Board of Elections as well. But I'm going to be very specific. 3 of my kids graduated from Carver. One now has a PhD in public health policy down at Duke University. She's a professor down there. One is a civil engineer, and one is out in Denver, Colorado, doing good work. I'm saying that for this reason. Carver High School has to be included in a FORSYTH Tech effort to train aviation expertise. I'm gonna tell you why I'm saying that. I had a meeting with Dr. Green before he retired because I heard FORSYTH Tech down the street here was being questioned. And so I had a breakfast meeting. I said, listen, I want to guarantee from you that that campus is not going to be questioned, it's going to be increased in population, et cetera. He said, Fleming, the aviation school will be taught at that location. I said, why not include Carver? You got to have a pattern of growth for the kids early on, 9th grade. If we know the school's going to be built and up and operating, we should begin talking now with the school board. We got new leadership. Let's get some aviation courses over here. Now, don't wait until the thing is built to train them so when they open up, we have access to it. Last thing, Dr. King said, if you don't stand for something, you'll fall for anything. We want to give Dr. Burke another hand because she stood for us for a long time.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes. Okay, thank you. Next speaker.
Madam Burke, Teresa Watkins, 3600 Shaw Road. I've been a resident out here for about 40-some years. Now, I understand this whole area is going to be a blooming adventure, but I'm listening to 737s coming into this area. We are a regional area. Where are we going to have that type of growth coming from? Because regionals, E-jets, can handle what's going out of Greensboro now, because the E-jets, about 70 people or so, some even smaller, carry folks from here to Toronto, here to Mexico, from out of Greensboro, depending on what the routes are. Now, 737s are huge planes. You're looking at almost 200 passengers. Now, when you get into that capacity, what type of growth are you looking at in Winston area that's going to sustain that type of aircrafts and need for that type of aircrafts in this area?
I didn't mean to mislead anybody. The 737s that are coming in for maintenance. They're empty.
Okay.
They come in, they land on the ground, they're either done a heavy check, they'll stay on the ground for 30 days or 10 days. We do occasionally have sports charters, like I remember Mayor Pro Temp came out for the Winston-Salem State football team when they went to the national championship game. They didn't win, and we were sad when they came back, but we met them with the band and everything, and so that's a typical sports charter that comes in, and we're able to hand that size aircraft. We do not want to get into a battle with PTI or Greensboro. Our market niche is not commercial service. They have TSA over at Greensboro. They're actually fighting, they call it a leakage factor. 60% of us that live in this community will either drive to Raleigh or Charlotte to catch I noticed your sweatshirt, United Airlines. So we're not really competing with PTI in regards to commercial service. Our niche is corporate and maintenance, repair and overhaul, flight training, that kind of market.
Okay, so if you're going to maintenance here, because a lot of maintenance is done within any regional airport. If they've got a problem when they land and need some maintenance done, that can be done right there on the spot. But if you're looking at overhaul, why are you concerned about 2 737s needing space to taxi in and out like you were a larger airport like Charlotte or Raleigh? Because that's not necessary if it's just going to be maintenance.
Yeah, we have a memorandum of understanding with our control tower. We have a control tower out at the airport, and so right now if there's a 737 landing and a 737 taxiing out, they don't taxi that aircraft out until that other one's landed, and that's how it's handled right now. But what the FAA has told us is they will not fund our existing taxiway, and it is in getting bad shape, until we move it to 400 feet to a safe. We don't have the funds to keep the current infrastructure where it is. The FAA is telling us that we have to move it from 281 feet to 400, and I can't fight the FAA on that.
So how many homes are we looking at, and how long of an area that's going to be confiscated for that runway?
We're looking at about 16 parcels.
16 parcels.
On Teresa Avenue.
On Teresa Avenue. And the other parcels that are remaining in that area, Castle Heights area, are they going to be proofed so that they will have the noise proof? Are they, because these are very heavy airlines coming in. It's going to be an enormous amount of noise. So what are you going to do about the residents who are left and have to deal with that type of capacity of noise?
The noise contours actually, in regards to runway, when you take off an aircraft, that's when you make the most noise. When you're taxiing, it's not as much noise. It'd still be an impact. The noise contours, we'll do part of that environmental study, environmental assessment I mentioned. We'll look at the noise contours when we do, if it's proposed to move that taxiway, what will that do to Castle Heights and that neighborhood? We are on the leading edge of this. I mean, we haven't started the environmental assessment. We started taking surveys. So this is all proposed. So I just want to lay that out. I don't have all the answers for you. I don't know if acoustic shielding is going to be possible with that neighborhood or not, but I do know that those 16 properties along Teresa do look very close, and the FAA is telling us we have to move the taxiway, that might likely happen.
Well, we know what the DC-9s used to sound like in this area, so we can not begin to understand the enormous, just taxiing in or even going out, what's going to do to this whole infrastructure of the Carver area. So that's going to have to be addressed before you move forward with expansion, because those homes that are left are going to have to exist in some type of a cohesive environment.
Yes,
that's
ma'am.
going to have to be done.
Thank you.
My name is Geraldine Traffic. I live on Airport Road. I've been a resident of this community for a long time. I say since I graduated from Athens High School in 1969, so it tells you how long I've been a resident in this area. I love this community. However, and I used to work for Piedmont Airlines, so a wonderful airline. Sorry it's gone, but anyway, The two prior speakers asked two of my questions. I was also concerned about how will high schools be linked into secondary education to provide job opportunities for people who look like me and others in this room. And I think someone has already answered it, that there will be something here at Carver School, and I hope there are other opportunities for other high schools who are seeking opportunities in aviation, which I think is a growing opportunity, a wonderful area to provide livelihoods. My second question, also the young lady before me talked about, and I heard you say, Mr. Davidson, about the aircrafts, the size of aircrafts that will be coming in to promote the growth of the airport. Sounds good, you know, cities need growth. However, I'm concerned about the residents in this community who have to face the noise. I've lived on Airport Road for a long time, so I know what the noise is. No one in this room has to tell me how the noise is disturbing. I've called over there to find out what's going on in the morning, early mornings, and in the late nights. I think it's tapered off somewhat now. Maybe it's because there's less maintenance required at the hangar. I don't know the reason, but I am very concerned about why there is so much noise disturbing me, my neighbors. But anyway, and it brought me to the realization that whatever the project is at the airport is pretty much a done deal. My concern is, how do we control the noise, the sound, and whether aircrafts are full or empty, the engine is the same. It's the same degree of noise. It's loud, it's disturbing. If you live where we live, you wouldn't want it. I love my community, I love my neighbors. I feel like I don't have to move anywhere else. I like where I am. I love them, they love me. But we should have a friendly relationship. Good fences make good neighbors. I think that was a rule for People Airlines. Mr. Tom Davis, when we were there, he was a good neighbor. He listened to the concerns of the neighbors. But now that we have this airport, which is growing, and I know that the FAA has grants for any community that is faced with noise. I know there are certain criteria to get it. And we're not talking about just a highway sound barrier that we see in Greensboro or on 40. We are talking about airport sound barriers, something that will muffle the sound to assist us. So we have to look into that we will get what we need, and as much as we need, because there's pretty much a long line of people who live from Lansing Drive all the way down to, I think you're saying maybe Bourne Boulevard, I don't know. But my concern basically is that. And also with the, you said the taxiway and the runway been improved, it's been stretched as long as wider. How is that going to affect the annual air show? Are we seeing bigger and better aircrafts coming in? Because I am not a proponent of the annual air show. I have been fighting the air show, my sister, myself, and my mother, bless her heart. We have been more like a three-woman show, trying to get something done about the outdated and dangerous air show to this community and to the community beyond 52. I think it's time out. We say the Me Too movement. I think it's the Us Too movement now. We need to stop the air show, but I'm not going to take this juncture to go into that. And Mayor Pro Tem, I hope we can get a committee of people here who don't want the air show. We can pretty much get together and start to get together and talk more about the non-existence and the outdated. It's 2019. And I think it's the, can I ask you a question, please, before I sit down?
Is Marvella your sister?
Marvella is my sister,
okay.
so you
All
know who I'm talking about. I'm Geraldine. You said there are 20, well, you mentioned the number of airports in North Carolina. Can you tell me how many?
72.
72, okay. I think the 28 was something else with the, maybe the, something with the programs, the aviation programs. I think it's like the number 28, 6, 7. How many of those airports in North Carolina, do they have air shows?
Some of them do.
Are they inner city?
I would have to get back to you on that.
They aren't.
Okay.
I'm done. Thank you so much for your time.
Get off the mic.
Thank you. Do you need to answer any questions that Ms. Trevick asked you? were you expecting an answer, Ms. Trevick, to any of your questions? Were you expecting an answer to anything you asked this evening?
No, I think everything's been answered. I just
Uh.
wanted to make sure, I mentioned, no one had mentioned your show yet.
Okay.
And there were no answers.
Mhm.
I just think that we need to get a committee
Okay.
sooner than later, hopefully, and we can just go forward with some other.
All right. Ms. Bradshaw will start getting the committee together. And then once we get your concerns, I would hope that Mr. Davidson will be sitting with us to address them. Thank you, Ms. Trevick. Yes.
My name is Cherie Oliver. We stay at 4815 Burrow Street. Our concern too is about the noise, even though it's not in that direction that they're planning to expand. When some of the aircrafts come in, it comes right over our house, like a line straight over our house, so close to the point if I wanted to throw a rock high enough, I could probably hit it. And the way our street is, I know the part of a runway is behind the school bus lot off of Lansing Drive. So I know my mama was concerned about the noise and are we going to be confiscated, or, you know, if anybody's going to allow us to move somewhere else if we don't want to deal with the traffic and more noise involved in our community. I mean, people work different shifts. I don't know how these aircrafts are going to be coming in frequently, but even with the little bit that comes in now, it's a lot. And I know anytime the president or vice president has to come here, it's really loud. We can feel the house shake. It's so loud. It just, it's loud. I mean, it's unbearable how loud it is sometimes. So that was just our concerns about where we're at on this side. And are they planning on expanding for Tech area as far as like parking lot, parking decks, hotel, you know, different things? What else is going to be included with this expansion?
I'll try to answer that.
Okay.
For those of you who live off the end of runway, this is our runway 3315. If you live over here in New Walkertown, off of New Walkertown Road, the noise contours are probably, that's probably the, you want to say the loudest near the airport is on that end. That the wind, you always want to take off or land into the wind. And so most of the operations are off this runway over here off of New Walker. When you talk about Lansing Boulevard 422, that's usually the flight training aircraft. About 50% of the traffic is split between the two runways. And so those are usually your single piston aircraft. I'm not sure, the bus lot is about up here. So I'm not exactly sure where you live. But what we can do as an airport operator as the county is that, like in our operating agreements with like North State, we can regulate when they do engine run-ups for maintenance and things like that. But as a public use airport, we are open 24 hours a day. And sometimes you do have an aircraft coming in. I remember United would bring an aircraft from Newark, New Jersey to be maintained, and they would come in at late hours. But the thing about the maintenance, repair, and overhaul business is that when they do land, they're on the ground for several days. It's not like your typical, when Piedmont Airlines was here, day after day operations, scheduled operations. So the noise contours at the airport have gone down. And when I say noise contours, the contours are primarily off the runs of into the runways, and then they get real narrow, and then they go out like that. So to answer your question, I don't know of any land acquisition or buying of the homes that we have planned. You can get with me afterwards, and I can look to see where you live, to see what the reason is for the noise.
The only reason why I say that, we already have to deal with the trains that come through anywhere from 4 a.m. up until 12 o'clock at night. And I guess they've been bringing cars in, 2019 cars and stuff, and it's like, you know, dealing with the trains, the planes, and the school buses, it's a lot all at one time. And it's like all the schedules are off as far as when things come through. So even if y'all are saying y'all are, you know, push the time back for that, that's still, we got to deal with trains coming through at 4 o'clock in the morning. You know, so it's like, okay, this is a lot to deal with. Yeah, it's a lot more to add on to it, so that's something to kind of think about.
Good point.
Good evening. My name is Norman Dunlap, and I live 3841 Draper Street. The three people in front of me asked a lot of the questions that I wanted to ask. But my main question is this. For me in my neighborhood, if I make noise after 11 o'clock at night, then the police is there. Say you can't make that noise. It cannot disturb your neighbor. Is there a difference between industry and me making noise after 11 o'clock at night?
That's a good question. Put me on the spot. The Federal Aviation Administration, the highway, our highways, you know, there's always noise on the highways. We, as an airport, can try to do certain measures to mitigate that noise. And I'm hearing that. To be honest, I haven't heard noise complaints in several years, to tell you the truth. I know the air show was a major concern, and I met with Marvell Willoughby, and we talked about that. But the noise, I'm actually kind of surprised tonight, all the noise complaints, and I understand that now. We are noise, like I said, since Piedmont left, and we don't have scheduled airline service anymore, our noise contours have gone down. But I'm hearing tonight there's some noise concerns, and we can try to do natural barriers around the airport. We can, you know, put in operating agreements about not having run-ups during, you know, nighttime hours. But as a public use airport, we have to be open 24 hours a day.
But you don't have to test engines 24 hours
Right,
a day.
exactly.
Just a couple of weeks ago, someone was testing engines about 2 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah, I need to know about that.
And my windows rattled, and I live on Draper Street, about 3 blocks away from Carver School Road.
I think the city manager needs to answer that question you asked about residents and companies.
And business.
Some years ago, we did have a relationship with the airport, and our police, whenever they were past the time they were supposed to be, the police would go up there and give them a little talk, and they would show. We had better organization then, but due to the airport authority believing that they were untouchable, they started doing things that I felt was not polite and courteous to us. And this is why I'm saying it's better now that we're with the county than how the airport was sitting out there thinking that they could do just what they want. They really got real unpleasant and negative because they had the backing. I wish the county commissioner was here. They had the backing of the county commissioners, and they also had an authority, and they felt that they were just on the islands, can do just what we want, they want, and did not show us the respect that we needed. That's why I'm saying it's a blessing in disguise that now it is with the county.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem Burke. Good evening, everyone. Several years ago, we looked at the noise issue and looked at the city and county ordinance related to noise and the relationship with the FAA and the federal rules that govern noise. We'll revisit that, and I'll talk to the county manager about it. There are some federal rules that sometimes preempt local rules, but you're right. Our local ordinances basically say define it as what will disturb the reasonable, what's the word, repose of
your neighbor.
Of a neighbor, yeah, right. So, but there are some federal rules that just we have the same issue, believe it or not, with highways. When the state is working on highways, the state can keep you up all night, and they trump us on that. But I'll take a look at it for you. Okay.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you, City Manager.
I'm Dr. Willardine Jordan Dula, and I've lived in this community since I was in 8th grade. 3200 Cumberland Road, but initially on Carver School Road. I have a couple of questions about the property in Castle Heights. Exactly how many, you said 16 parcels? Do you have the addresses? You could? Okay. I was just wondering, how far will that go? Will that extend to New Walkertown Road. Do you know if it will go up to New Walkertown Road or?
Right now, this is Teresa Avenue running right through here. The county owns this parcel here, and from what, this is all preliminary once again, there's 16, there's like a little cul-de-sac here, and it's just those properties right there.
Okay. I think it's mighty coincidental that a couple of years ago, the tax value on the property in Castle Heights went down very low. And a lot of people have been saving and actually trying to complete their mortgages on in the neighborhood where I own some property, so that they would have a place of retirement without a mortgage. Now, if they are going to be moved or bought out by the airport, I know that what basis would you be looking at to calculate the kind of money that you would give them? Would you be looking at the current value that you have decreased the tax value to and adding a little more onto that, and then they're really not getting the proper money that they should get for their properties?
Why don't you talk about the process? You got to go through that. Okay.
Okay. What we're talking about, he was talking about a reassessment in 2021 is scheduled. I only know it from the other side of what happens is we'll do that environmental assessment. If the FAA says, yes, it's necessary because of the distance from the taxiway or for the aeronautical development, the federal government is telling us, the airport, we have to do this project, then the process starts where we would, take the evidence from the environmental assessment, hire a consultant or a firm, and then start the process, the federal process of acquiring a parcel or piece of land. And that process is, they evaluate, get appraisals, and the federal government would pay 90% of that. So it doesn't, the county, you said it was coincidental that the value was just recently.
Yeah, the value, the tax base.
I don't think there's some conspiracy here, because it's all federal money that we would get to make that happen. And then what they would do is they would evaluate the parcels, and then they also pay for relocation or moving expenses with that.
But I feel that there should be some kind of supplemental addition to those people who are going to lose their property because of the fact that the value has been taken down so far. A piece of property on some of the homes in Castle Heights has gone from like $63,000 in value to $17,000 or $20,000. And that is not going to be sustainable for a person looking to have a relocation. They're going to be underwater. They're going to have problems. They're not going to be able to go anyplace else and not have to pay a large amount of money.
You're exactly right. Now, you see all of us here. Now, we're just not going to lay over and let them just walk over us.
Mm-hmm.
Now, with these taxes, I've told the people when they came through our neighborhood, some of these investors, some of the people got frightened and they sold at the price that the county has set.
Mm-hmm.
But this is what I have told the people. My piece of property right today, if somebody were to come to me and wanted to buy mine, not at the county's price, but at the value of today is what they would pay.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that's what you have to keep in mind and not get excited. If they want it bad enough,
Mm-hmm.
we have people coming in from California.
Mm-hmm.
We have them coming in. Greensboro sends us letters as we were
Mm-hmm.
saying, Mr. Bird, last
That's
night
right.
at the meeting. Greensboro sends us letters every day
Mm-hmm.
trying to get our property. And what they have done, they have taken advantage of the minds of some of the people,
Mm-hmm.
and they have sold. Now, some years ago, I met with the airport people, and we were meeting down at City Hall talking about what really wasn't as bad as it is now about the condition. So happened the chairman at that time, he made a comment, and he didn't know I listened to everybody. And he said, those are little cracker boxes over there. I said, just a moment, just a moment. They may be cracker boxes to you, but it's investments to us that we have struggled to try to get the houses there.
That's right.
Also, we have paid higher taxes on our interest on our money than what we should have been paying.
Exactly.
They've taken advantage. Now, I don't think, I think we need to do a little more research, and we find out when these airports come in. We want to, but we don't want them on our backs to take advantage of us.
Exactly.
I do believe that somebody will listen to us
Okay.
if we're not getting the answers that we need to get from the county. But we're going to have to stay together. We're going to have to take the younger ones who are in here to be our energy, to be with us, because I've been out here for 63 years. I believe, wait a minute, let me get the thing straight. I came out here in 1963. My husband and I, we were now 30 years old, and we built the house that he paid for in 25 years. But we didn't have all of this. We knew we were going to grow, but we did not believe that the airport would just send us away completely. Now that we are growing, there ought to be some stronger expectations, Dr. Dula.
Okay.
Dr. Dula's father passed not too long ago.
Yes.
January, he would have been what age?
Oh, January 3rd, he would have been 99.
99, I
Yes.
tell you. He was Mr. Dula at WSSU, where he worked.
Good evening. Sue Todd, 2921 New Walkertown Road, Eastgate Village. Is anyone from Flamingo Investments here? They own Eastgate Village. What is the impact that this will have on Eastgate Village? We are a stone's throw away from that cul-de-sac he mentioned, and I as well, when planes are coming over, I can literally throw a rock up and hit them. So has anyone addressed Eastgate Village? Are we being left out? What is going on with that?
Address. I really should have, this is the northeast, but the other part you're talking about is the east ward. And I will have a conversation with the council person from the east ward, and when we have our next meeting, I will invite her to please come. We'll do that, Ms. Bradshaw, because she's going to be standing just as strong as I am about what's right. And we do know that they can land right on Eastgate.
Yes.
The planes just come right,
Yes.
just about to fall on them. So we will, did you say Ms. Todd?
Yes, ma'am.
Ms. Todd, we will. Thank you.
very
Make sure,
much.
Ms. Bradshaw.
Thank
My name is Deborah Daniels. I live at 2932 Bainbridge Drive. My mother lives at 3020 Bainbridge Drive. One thing, can we post this somewhere so we can see it? And the next thing is, can we overlay the properties that are affected on top of this so we know exactly which properties are affected? Because I think seeing just what you have, but impacting with whose houses these are, would speak more to how they're being impacted.
Sure.
The next thing is, we need a schedule of when we will come back to meet about progress as it goes along, and as you'll get more information from the FAA or who else is approving. We need a schedule so that we can be in conversation and not just getting a piece of paper, but we need to continue to be in conversation, probably not just now, but as the airport continues to grow. We're the neighbors to the airport, and we need to be in continual conversation. So if we can just be included in having that go forward.
I agree, and also going back to this project, if you recall, the Army Corps of Engineers sent out that notice to the adjacent property owners. The next step is the comments. They did receive comments back, and there'll be a public hearing. I was trying to get the public hearing, so not everybody had to come out twice, but that will probably be the next meeting, will be the public hearing for this project. Now, this project doesn't impact like the other one with the taxiway. This one is by Piedmont Propulsion, by North State Aviation. This is building a ramp here, and there's no, they're moving dirt from one side of the airport to over here. So, but that'll be the next meeting, and maybe we can have another neighborhood discussion after the public hearing.
Okay, thank you.
And then we'll also update we'll put more stuff on our webpage and work with the county here.
Yes, my name is Preston McCollum. I live on Draper Court. And when I came out here, I know you mentioned there would be a landfill. My concern is what type of landfill are you talking about? Because we had one when I was out here. I came here in 1972. And there was a lot of heavy equipment, a lot of heavy trucks, and all this thing. Are you going to be responsible for any damaged property, like foundations cracked, the cleanup, or whatever, when those trucks come through? And exactly what areas are you going to be using on this landfill? What streets are going to be used?
Yeah, let me, the landfill, for those, I wasn't at the last meeting, but Brian Wright with the state, who mitigated or investigated, discussed this issue. And what this is, the landfill, the landfill issue was used in the 30s, 40s, and 50s and 60s, I think. This is a landfill that was located at the midsection of these two runways here. And what happened was a couple years ago, when you go to the land dump, if you go to the dump anything, you pay them $1, and those dollars go to old landfills. And so what the state did is they came to our airport and they said, hey, you have an old landfill here from 50, 60 years ago. We want to make sure that it's not contaminating the streams or the waterways or anything like that. And so they came in, investigated it, took core samples, all that kind of stuff. And so what they did recently is they put a fence around the landfill to make sure, even though we have a fence around our airport that was to protect the public from this landfill. There's no contamination in regards to, there's no need to mitigate. They said when we build this taxiway eventually, we can build on top of it. And so that's the landfill issue.
Okay, yeah, my concern was...
There's no future landfill coming. We were just taking care of an old one.
No future landfill?
No,
okay, I got
no.
in my letter stated that there was a landfill.
Yeah,
I was just concerned, is this highway waste or is this garbage?
No, there was an old landfill back in the 30s, 40s, and 50s that were...
Yeah, I know that.
Yeah, but there's no new landfill. No new landfill. Okay. I'm sorry, what? There's land over the landfill. There's no reverence of the old landfill, and there's no contamination.
I'm Ramona Kay, and I'm in that cul-de-sac on Teresa Avenue. And you know about the start date, which is 2020. You know about the 16 parcels of the acquisition. But why is it that the FAA hasn't decided yet? Because we need to know a time span as to when are you going to acquire this property. So, I mean, you're waiting for FAA, but you know everything else about when it's going to start. But we need to know when are we going to hear from you about the acquisition of our property?
Yeah. And this is where I'm sort of in a bind, because I'm having this public meeting, and I want to be transparent as possible. We haven't had a chance, because we're not at that environmental assessment phase, to start contacting the landowners of those properties. So I'm putting all my cards on the table saying this is a possible impact, are these 16 properties. The next step will be the environmental assessment, where we will contact you, a firm will contact you and say, hey, this is a possible development at the airport. We need to see if it's a part of what the FAA wants to do. Does that make sense?
It makes sense.
Decision hasn't been made.
But you know about 2020. You know everything else.
No,
but you're still waiting for
That's
this.
where I was getting at. for this meeting, I wanted to have some estimates. I didn't want to just tell you it's coming sometime. I wanted to have an idea. Taxwood, Quebec, we're talking about spring of 2021. If everything went right and the property owners wanted to sell their property, after the environmental assessment is done, the FAA says, yes, you need to acquire these properties. That's 2 years from now. I don't know if we're going to be there, but I don't know what you want us to do.
Now, see, what I would think, if you're going to buy these properties, then you just shouldn't start whispering to one and to another one. We should be consistent. Talk to the whole 16, not one or two, because see, that'll run you sort of nervous and everything. And also, we need to be able to keep a time that you're communicating back with, as we just told the other speaker, with us, so we'll know what's going on. We don't want to read it in the paper. We don't want to hear from one of the 16 people that they're buying my house and the other 15 not know about it. Mm-hmm.
I don't know how else to say this. I want to be transparent as possible, but you don't want to tell people that we're going to buy your property and then not do it because they won't invest in their property. They'll let it fall possibly. I don't know. I'm just in that bind right now.
Well, we always invest in our property, but it's the thing that we need to know what's going on. If you know that much, why is it that the FAA hadn't talked to you about the study, or when are they going to approach you to do this study?
That's what I'm saying. We're at the very beginning of this process.
So they didn't give you a timeline. It's just the beginning, but when will the middle start? When will the end get?
I don't have all the answers. I just know that the next step will be the environmental assessment, and that should be soon.
We'll certainly be looking and listening for some information, because I'm right in there.
I understand your frustration.
My name is Kiki Stevens King, and I'm up here because I actually resided, and my business resides now at 4917 Milton Drive. Of course, I was brought up there, went to Carver School, got married, moved out. My salon is in the basement of my parents' home. Has been there for 20 plus years. We have an early childhood licensed daycare center also that was upstairs in my parents' home. So we have definitely given back to community, had jobs for the community. So my question is, now that I'm not living here but my business is there, I would be concerned about my clientele relocating. Have y'all taken in consideration, and surely there may be more other people in here with other businesses, entrepreneurs in their homes within this area that may be affected. If not, I am definitely affected. I think we're right on Milton Drive, right down here. And so I don't know, if I'm not mistaken, my parents, the daycare upstairs and my salon downstairs will be in y'all map area. So I'm like everyone here. I would like to see what addresses are affected. That way we'll know how to, move forward. And I am actually with the other community people that don't want to speak up. I was disappointed when the tax values were lower. Because like I said, I was brought up here. I'm 48 years old, and I was brought up here. So I went to Carver School, I went to Walkertown. I didn't get to graduate from East. I was made, my year, 1988, I had to graduate from Carver School, which was fine. So we have put a lot into this area. And to me, I'm just gonna be upfront with you. To come and buy my parents' property, you're gonna pay us some money. I'm just gonna tell you. Because those are a lot of memories there, and it's got to be well worth it. So I was disappointed when the tax value lowered. Y'all might have lowered it, maybe not you, but to us that was a disappointment because we put more into that. So I'm gonna tell you, for the address where my parents live and where my business still resides, I'm looking for some money. If I have to relocate, you're gonna pay me some money.
Now, thank you. Any other questions? Now, this is what I want to say. When they were changing and they sent letters from the county about the taxes, you should have been down there at that county commissioners like you are tonight. Because even though you say they're going to have a certain scale of what they're going to pay people, and what they do, they will give you, they get a bid, but then also they will see what the fair market price is. And somewhere in between that, that's what you will get if they operate like the city. Yes. No, they wouldn't take it. They wouldn't take it.
Yes.
Ms. Williams.
My name is Beverly Williams, and I live on Butterfield Drive. I have a comment and then a couple of questions. This whole information thing here tonight has been centered around economic growth for the city and the jobs that it will create. My comment is that when we've heard this before in the past, there are jobs created, but those who receive the jobs are the people who live over there. So they come to town, work off of Liberty Street, and they go back home. So they don't have to deal with any of the other issues that are underlying after they leave. They don't deal with the noise, they don't deal with the taxes, they don't deal with anything. They are gone. So it's interesting that you would mention Carver School, Prince Ibrahim, and the kids that go there as far as potential people to get these jobs. But history says that's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. My other comment or question is related to, it appears that you already have contracts with people to come in and do the maintenance. Is this correct?
Contracts for people to do the maintenance
to bring the people who want to bring their airplanes in to be worked on.
Our current tenants that lease space from us go out in the marketplace and attempt to get business and contracts, maintenance contracts. That is correct.
Are you aware of the amount of these contracts and how many they are, since it's supposed to bring in so much money?
Like for instance, North State Aviation is sort of like a boutique aircraft maintenance and repair overhaul station now. They used to have, if you recall, you saw a lot of United Airlines. From right now, they'll go out to vendors like Swift Air and RAL out of Ireland or Miami Aircraft, and they'll try to get that business. So it's not a steady line like it was with United. A heavy maintenance check could be up to $800,000, or I don't really know.
I guess I'm asking, are there already contracts out there for people to come in to bring their aircraft in, because you're projecting that we're going to make so much money from all of this? So I'm assuming that somebody already knows at least how many people are going to come in to do this, and also who they are. I'm sure somebody knows who they are.
Yeah, it's we've noticed North State and those businesses are very secular. Come in and go. It depends on the contracts they get, whether they get a signatory airline or something like that. I have a hard time understanding the question.
Can somebody help him to understand what I'm asking?
Go ahead.
When you mention the jobs to be done, you mentioned there will be so many jobs coming in that's going to carry out these duties. So she wants to know, do you already have the companies that's going to do the work, and who will be employed by them?
So I didn't know I was going to talk this much, so I was going to put my coat on. So anyway, so what the community has and what the county owns out there is a facility that was built to maintain aircraft. And so, the focus that we have and that Mark spends all his time on is leasing these facilities up, because what you essentially have is everything you need to take care of and maintain aircraft. But we are competing with other facilities in other parts of the country around that, and we're competing for an operator in that facility. And so North State Aviation is a company that has been in that business. They have contacts in that business, and so they are able to market and really compete for aircraft coming to Winston-Salem to do this, so that we can put people to work. And so it's very, very competitive. It is a cyclic business. If you notice, there are fewer cars in that parking lot kind of heading into the holidays, because basically these MROs are less busy because there's more airplanes in the air around holidays and some things like that. And so I guess my point is, we are competing as a community mightily to have that facility operating and have people employed out of it. That's really what this is all about. And what our focus is now, kind of identified through this Aerotropolis work, is that we've got all these assets around this transportation hub that has rail and aircraft and everything right there. And the community believes that we're situated well to take advantage of this asset and really to grow the economy, increase property values in the neighborhoods, increase property values around this area. That is, I mean, that is what this effort's about.
But generally, when you bring this kind of business into the area, it is not going to increase the property values because of all the other associated items that people have talked about. It's going to decrease the property values. And the other thing, if North State and the other agencies have cyclic income coming in, what makes you think that it's going to increase because we have a longer runway and because we have a building, we have kids? That does not necessarily equate to having more people come in to do business here.
You know, you look at all these projects and they're all about investment in an asset. You know, if the community didn't invest in the asset, if the FAA didn't invest in it, then it would just run down and it would decline, it would get worse. You'd have fewer jobs here, and it would you know, it would be. We're sort of trying to turn the tide of this to pump this investment into it, and it's really not public. It's not county investment. The city's not invested a tremendous amount of money out here. We're really just leveraging federal money, and there'll be jobs associated with it.
Well, I understand the
It's a
intent.
dream.
No, yeah, that's exactly what it is.
It is a dream.
And it's not a Martin Luther King dream either. I think it's a kind of dream that may not materialize. I really don't, because there's so much competition going on, and then you've got all these people who've been affected with something that may not happen.
And you are exactly right. It may fail miserably, but you either invest in it and dream and hope it works, or you walk away from it. And I don't think Mayor Pro Tem Burke wants us to walk away from this asset.
Well, the people here are speaking, so we'll let the people also say.
Absolutely.
Okay.
I mean, if we need to walk away from it, we can, but that would seem to be a tremendous waste. And I understand. I understand the concerns.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you very good that she brings. Yes.
My name is Morticia Parman, and my question is, what happened in April of 2018 that y'all decided not to extend the runway in the airport and then turn around in August of 2018 and put it back on the table? And by the time it came back on the table, y'all already had a plan and everything in the works. That's public notice. That was definitely happening.
Okay. I'm a little confused.
2018.
2018.
That was last year.
Right.
April. Y'all said we are not going to extend the runway.
We never had plans to extend the runway.
Extend the runway in 2018.
Never. What?
In August, y'all put it back on the table and said you was going to do the runway again.
No, the thing we were going to do, and always have wanted to do, is to add some dirt here at the end of this runway. Not extend the pavement, just safety. If an aircraft ran off the end of the runway, they wouldn't go over a hill. I don't know of any other, there's no runway extension ever discussed. Maybe the Army Corps of Engineers.
I just say we're doing the airport all together.
I'm sorry,
The
one more time.
airport itself in general all together, y'all weren't gonna do it. It was taken off the table. In April, we can go back, we can pull it up on anybody's phone, and you can read it for yourself. It was taken off the table. Y'all brought it back to the table in August.
We never had plans to extend the runway.
And everything else. And then my second question is, once
Let me go back to your first one.
Okay.
We'll do research to see, and we come back to the meeting, we will see. That's the best I can say right now.
Okay.
Thank you.
And then the next question is, what happens when we don't generate the revenue from the airport that y'all thought? Are we gonna still extend it to other projects and still take other people's homes, or extend it down Liberty Street to affect other things? Because some point in time, if you don't get the revenue out of something, because this is an investment, if you don't get your money out your investment, you're gonna pull from investments to make up for the money and compensate for what you're not getting it from that pot. So what happens if it does fail and it doesn't do what you want it to do?
A lot of the projects, when I talk about a $70 million investment over the next 5 years, possibly, with those 4 projects I mentioned. Every one of those projects, is state or FAA, federal money coming into this community that'll be invested at either 100 or 90%. The county, the city are only investing, the county, 10% of that local share. We're not getting into debt service, nothing like that. So I don't see where we're going to pull revenue, or if revenue is not up to a certain point, I don't think that we're going to be, I don't know how to answer that.
The only thing I'd add to that is that the airport operations have been self-sustainable, so there's none of your tax dollars go in to fund the airport operations. We are fortunate to own a lot of real estate that is leased to others at the airport, and so the source of those dollars that match up most of his projects are local or revenues generated that lessees are paying into it. And so there's really not a lot of exposure here around a heavy local investment that has to be made to pull this off. And what we hope is that if you're doing $70 million worth of construction, that there are folks that live in this community, live in that neighborhood, who are employed by some of these construction firms that are employed through it. And that's what we hope.
Okay. Now, what we have done with the city, and when we make an investment, we've had the city to put in there so many jobs will be for our residents. When we let investors build apartments and we put some money in there, we say so many of the apartments should go to lower income people so they can be a part of what's being developed, because it's all the tax dollars that we put in, they belong to us, and so we have something to say. Now, Ms. Williams asked the question, and the county manager answered the question. It's like, if it happens, it will be things worked out that's going to be fair to the citizens for it to happen. If we talk about an aviation place, we talk about this high school, there must be special emphasis for this high school to be made clearly aware, and how the guidance counselor and the principal will be involved in getting the students to participate. Now, our problem, all of your dollars that we have invested from the city, see, we're more accountable, no disrespect to the county. You need to be going to the county, letting them see you and what you expect from the county. With the city, we have said over and over again to the mayor, you go out, you bring these jobs here, these companies, and we have to vote for it. But we have been a failure in the city with all the money we have spent, with no more jobs than we've given to the residents who live in the city. Now they say, why does that happen? It happens because, as Dr. Fleming Alameen said, you've got a new school board now. Maybe that school board will look at the academic performance of the minority children and try to see if they will have an interest in teaching them, because no matter how much we stand up here and talk about wanting the jobs, if the people are not prepared, they hire who's prepared. And once upon a time, when Kiki stated that she finished school here, but our environment around here, you had teachers and people and such positive role models in the neighborhood where children saw them going and coming to work, getting up, family ties. But the parents we have today are just as mature as the children that they're sending to school, some of them. So we're going to have to work closely, starting with your elementary school, and then you go to your middle school. That's where you start pulling the children out to get them into the training. I've told all them superintendents, starting with Urkel, Coble, and Don Martin, because my job was at the Career Center coordinating a program, interest education coordinator, with all of the 10 high schools to get our students into the programs that they need to go into so that they could get their training. And we had a variety of things. But unless you have these high school principals, guidance counselors, and teachers concerned about moving our children to another level, we're just talking. Now you need to go to the school board. Speak to them about the attitude you feel that's been taken. I see it as not really concerned about minority children. Now this ought to be a challenge to us right this night, that we will be working, and you should be right with us, Mr. Davidson. And anything that this county is spending of our tax dollars, Mr. Watt, you should be as conscious as we are sitting out here. I've said to this city manager more than one time, I represent some of the most intelligent people in this city and county. We're smart people. We have been aggressive, and that's why I never feel ashamed when they talk. We've not had our hands out. We put our hands in our pockets and we've been given. And we deserve the kind of respect. And with this project that they're talking about, if you stick together and you don't like it, then we can stand up and say to them, at least we will let them know what we like and what we don't like. Now y'all can go to sleep all you want to go to sleep. I'm far from sleep. It's not a thing I miss. I don't want to get started tonight, because if I do, I tell you, these men won't be able to sleep tonight.
I can't follow that. That's a hard act to follow there. I had trouble standing up here this long. You're tough.
I have a question. Bob Wilson, my question is, had not Ricky Wilson, a lot of you know her, married Michael Williams. She told me 15 years ago that they were going to be taking where she lived in Castle Heights. So my question is, how could she have known 15 years ago this was coming and nobody knew until now what's going on? So the next step in my head is not jobs, but investment. If you're talking about money being made, why shouldn't we all make some money? Because it's about money, isn't it? So not just a piece of the pie, but a large piece of the pie. And it seems to me, if there are going to be things laid out, it should be a set aside, which makes sense to me. I don't know what percentage you would do if in terms of jobs to ensure that these young people have an opportunity that they haven't had in the past, because this is going to go deeper than 9th grade. They need to be prepared academically to get the job later, so it should start earlier than 9th grade. They should be in a position where we all benefit from what you're talking about. This whole corridor, not just one group of people, but everybody in this room. That makes sense?
Yeah.
Ms. Bradshaw, you say something?
No, I'm done. That's the last question.
Pardon me?
That was the last question.
Okay, we've had our last question. Any other question, comment, suggestion, or recommendation? Go to the mic.
You made a comment, Ms. Burke, about the community coming together when the taxes was dropped. The problem that I have with Winston-Salem, and I might have missed something in the mail, is that my parents told me about this, so therefore I got notification from my parents. So my question is, I missed the first meeting. I, first of all, don't know when the first meeting was held. I don't know if I was invited, if I got a letter. So, right. So when we say, if we come and support, you should have been such and such a place, then to me, this is very important. Everybody that's affected, address-wise, should be notified. Telephone calls, letters, emails, because they're going to be affected. And to me, a lot of times with things like this, a lot of people are not notified so that they won't come, so that people can go ahead and move along with the vote and do what they want to do. Now, like I said, when the value of the homes were dropped, I was not aware, and I live in Kernersville, and that value was dropped also. If I was aware, guess what? I would have been at the meeting, but more than likely, my parents was there. But I say that to say, for the next meetings and the meetings to come, please be sure that everybody addressed that will be affected have been notified during several ways, during the email, phone calls. I mean, it's very important because these people's lifestyles may be getting ready to change. So, like I said, a lot of times they don't want to get the information out. Oh, we only had a certain little amount of people at the meeting. I think these people will want to be coming to the meeting.
Yes, yes, and I want to say we've got a question to answer. Is that correct? But I want you to know we don't have any secrets. We don't want to keep anything from you. As the representative, we don't think like that, and Ms. Bradshaw works very hard to make sure everybody will know what's going on. And then we say share it with your neighbors. Because now I'm not going to get on the mail people, but they're very honorary. Now they do just what they want to do, and sometimes we don't get our mail. We have new people coming in. And so one lady said, I take mine to the post office because I'm not getting my mail. And so you bring up a good comment, and we hear you. We hear you very clearly. Now we're going to answer his question.
I think the last part of it, the first part of it, how did the other, was it a relative or friend thought we were buying all the homes in Castle Heights or something like that? I don't, yeah. Yeah, I don't have an answer to that. I do know that when the FAA came to us about the 281 feet versus 400, there were several ideas about the layout of the taxiway. And I've been here since 2010. In regards to the other, I cheer what you said about the job creation and economics of this whole idea. Setting aside, as we develop all this, setting aside, I don't know if that would be a question for, yeah.
About who would be doing the cleaning. So it seems to me if somebody's going to be doing some cleaning, they're going to get paid, and there could be some set aside for this community.
Oh, okay.
Not just jobs, but actually whoever will be owning those jobs.
As a leader, you're better to answer.
He'll do some research because I'm not going to answer this question. Somebody help.
Lee and I were talking, all these projects are public projects, so they'll be bid with the minority business enterprise activity. So all of that will happen just as a matter of course. It'll all be bid through a joint city-county purchasing department that does all the other work. And we're a joint department, so there's really no difference between the city and the county in that respect.
Have we brought those departments together?
When the airport moved over under the county's umbrella, he'll now work with city-county purchasing.
Yes, all right. I want to say to all of you how much I appreciate your presence. This is your neighborhood. This is your investment. Now, we do have someone from the Evergreen. Introduce yourself.
My name is Scotty Space. I am the superintendent of the cemetery at Evergreen, and one of the concerns that I have as a citizen is that part of the old Evergreen remains on the airport property. So the reason I am here is to see what their plans are to protect that portion of Evergreen that's still there on the airport property.
When we got the attention about the Evergreen has been, when it was in the city, we should have done a better job where that former cemetery is. When I say is, when they started it, for the new Evergreen, some people moved their bodies and some did not. Some put little tombs, markers to show the bodies were still there. Now, if you live on Bainbridge, how many of you live on Bainbridge? Well, when you go down Bainbridge from Carver School Road and you get into your little cul-de-sac to the right behind where some of you live, that's the former cemetery. Now, this is what made me unhappy. We had to, and Scotty Speed's been knowing me because I was his counselor when he was in the, what, 5th grade. So we've been knowing each other a long time, and they know I say what needs to be said. It was so hurtful when I went up there to look and all that underbrush. Nobody had done anything to make that sacred ground decent. So what I did, I happened to be at a meeting, and I spoke to Commissioner Whitson. I said, it's a disgrace how we as a city has allowed it to be what it is. I said, we have all those bodies still there. And by the way, there were no bones from the dead. It could have been some other bones because they have about, what did you tell us, 10 or 15 feet of dirt. So nobody was up because of bad weather. So I said, is there anything that you can do? She said, yes, I can. And she was getting ready to go out of town the next day. But she called me before she left. She said, now, Vivian, I've been able to do this. I spoke to the county manager. Is that right, Mr. Watt? And he has put it in his budget to make sure we make that how it should be, appropriate. Because even though they moved the cemetery, it was, and that was way before me and us, they still were supposed to make sure that ground was sacred. So if any of you know anybody whose bodies may be up there, families, would you let us know, Ms. Bradshaw? She has her number. And again, I want to tell you the things that we have done from the city's department in making sure we communicate. We put out an invitation to come with the top of this on it, inviting you and telling you. When we had our first meeting, they put a picture of me inviting. And Ms. Bradshaw is a hard worker. Our marketing department is working hard, and we appreciate them making sure they document everything we do. And I bet you, if they were to ask in any meetings that we've had in this city with their concern, nobody can outdo the Northeast Ward in coming and being present to speak for themselves. You all know I love competition. I like to win. I don't like for nobody to outdo me. And I don't like for my ward to fall second to anybody. I tell the city manager I want my ward treated with high respect. And I can say all these things because I have you who's been supporting what we want to see and have in an area that we enjoy living. We do have, is that Mr. McCray over there? And the other lady. Stand up, both of you, and tell them who you are.
I'm with the Chamber of Commerce, and we're out here. We're so supportive of these efforts. Dr. Burke works so hard, and Mr. Davidson over the airport is working really hard. We're glad you're here to be able to show yourselves and have your voices heard.
Yes, and I'm pleased to be here tonight, hear more about what's going on, and this is a great resource for our community, and just glad to hear all those questions and things.
And one thing she does, she goes around and help to bring businesses with the chamber. We also see that, are you still the chairman of the airport? Would you introduce yourself, Stan, please?
I've been on the airport board now for 8 years, and this is actually a terrific opportunity for us to hear you and to listen and to learn. And we will all take all of this back and be very serious and want to do what's right for this community.
Do you have any of your board members with you? All right, thank you. Thank you very much. Now, this has been what I would see as a very productive meeting. The end results are not here yet. When we get some more information, we come back to you. And in the meantime, if you have any suggestions, recommendations, or any questions, Ms. Bradshaw is available. And she has her email that we email. And of course, you can always talk with me. and she does have her information here. And also, Mr. Davidson is still available, and his information is here. I do appreciate you coming out. We're here for you. With no more questions, suggestions, or recommendation, this meeting stands adjourned. Thank you.